Hello, and welcome to the little mini tutorial on this little After Effects project that you have hopefully downloaded from my Patreon. I really appreciate it. And this is to explain the project itself, which is then trying to explain time displacement. I'm explaining how to use a project that I made to help you understand time displacement. Let's get into it. So in this project, we have two main compositions that you might want to play with. We have the understanding time resolution or understanding stretch and direction. Let's start with understanding time resolution. It is the simplest one. So in this composition, we have only one layer that you should really be messing with. That is the time displacement adjustment layer, on which we have a time displacement effect. And there's a lot of special trickery that I'm doing in this project with shy layers and stuff to use shape layers and simulate how a time displacement effect would work. But it is all for demonstration. It should work in the way a normal time displacement effect would work. Now let's start off by setting the time displacement to 0. In other words, basically turning it off. What would this clip look like if it had no time displacement? And I'm just going to scrub from left to right, and we can see that the video would play this green bar going up over time. That's the base default video. Now, as I start to crank the time displacement up, let's go to 1 second offset and then 2 second offset. Let's go all the way to maybe a little over 2 seconds. What we can see on the screen is this little display at the top, which shows us on the right-hand side of the screen, we have a offset of 2 seconds into the future, so to speak, and negative 2 seconds into the past, delayed versus advanced left and right. And this is referencing the gray gradient we see behind, where white is advanced and black is delayed. Now, this also shows that as I scrub the video, we have a ramp. It seems like a ramp, but what's really going on is the right side of the screen is playing the advancement of that green bar going up before the left-hand side of the screen. So we get a, cascading delay. That delay, or that ramp, will actually get steeper as I increase the maximum displacement, because we're trying to cram more seconds into the future and more seconds in the past onto the same space. So the right side is now showing even further advancement of that vertical movement, and the left side's even more delayed, steeper ramp. You're also going to notice, there's a little dog here. You're also going to notice that the number of lines on the screen is also increasing as I increase max displacement, which brings us to the next concept, which is the time resolution. There's a time resolution property here. And yes, this will actually change the number of slices we have on the screen, but it's always a factor of the time displacement time. Think about it this way. The resolution is per second, right? And the number of seconds we're seeing on the screen is the displacement time. So if I, for example, set this to 5 seconds of displacement, think about it this way, actually. We have 5 positive seconds from the middle to the right and 5 negative seconds from the middle to the left. In other words, we actually have 10 seconds of displacement on the screen. And if I set the time resolution to 10 slices per second, you can actually see the number of slices increases. It gets a little bit sharper, right? So the image is getting slightly sharper. You could actually do some simple math. It's actually 5 times 2 for negative and positive, or 10 times the time resolution, which is 10, and we would have 100 slices across the screen right now. So we have a horizontal resolution of 100. Sorry, my phone is deciding to blow up just as I record this. Anyway, we have, we can go pretty high with this. I've made this demonstration capable of getting pretty sharp, and you'll actually see the lines getting thinner and thinner. They can get pretty high, and the video will actually be harder to play as you go higher and higher, but it's all shape layers, so it shouldn't be too hard, which in the real world, the higher you have the time resolution, the harder your computer is working. But I think that covers everything in the understanding time resolution section. There are other aspects that will affect your ability to make your time resolution sharp, which I cover in the longer tutorial that you probably watched before this, on how I made Zebra, in that, bit depth is going to be a factor. How many slices is your actual gradient made out of, in other words, in 16-bit depth here, so that's not really playing a factor. All right, moving on to the other main composition, understanding stretch and direction. So this one's a little bit trickier to understand, but it's hopefully a way to explain some of the really weird stuff that you'll see when you're just playing around with the time displacement effect. For example, not only will movement in one direction get like warped or delayed if someone's walking across the screen, but eventually things really strangely will happen. Like they'll actually change direction. Someone will like walk backwards across the screen when they were actually walking forwards. So I'm going to help try to explain that with this composition. So again, in this composition, there is a time displacement effect. This time it's actually on the arrow animating layer, the only one that's not locked. There's a time displacement effect. And I'm going to set the max displacement to like 5 seconds. And I'm going to set the time resolution to something simpler like 10. In this composition, the time resolution is not accurate like the other one. It's more representational. But anyway, again, playing this timeline is the key here. You can see what the video is supposed to be. In fact, actually, I'm going to set the max displacement to 0. So the video is actually, here's where it gets confusing. The time displaced result, this right here at 0, is going to show you what the actual video would look like. And it's just let's just imagine this is an extremely thin video. It's going to show you what your video would look like if it was referencing these other videos at different points in time. The way to understand this is that if you look up higher, you have another example of the exact same video that is actually delayed 1 second, 2 second, 3 second, 4 second, 5 as you go up, advanced upwards and delayed down. Why are we showing all these other versions of the video that are delayed? We'll come to that in a second, but this explains why, up at the top, we have an arrow that's going more advanced than the one that's delayed at the bottom. So let's go about like halfway through this video, as we crank up the maximum displacement time, you'll start to see two things happen. One is you'll start to see these lines start popping out of the main video, and you'll also see some weird distortion on our triangle character. So the way this works is that these lines represent which sort of where in the delay versus advancement this screen is actually pulling from, this middle video. So for example, let's say I take a slice. Actually, I can do this because this is a Zoom recording. I'm going to take a slice where the tip of this, right here in this video, where is this actually referencing the original video? It's actually referencing about half a second into the future, right here. Or sorry, into the past. And what does it see about half a second into the past? It sees the tip of the triangle. What does it see if I go, let's say, in this slice? It's referencing a little further back in time. It's referencing the back end of a triangle here. And then everything in between is referencing somewhere between those two. So we get a stretched out triangle when we have a maximum displacement of +3. This will make more sense as we go along. Hopefully, stay with me here. As I increase this displacement, it's getting more and more stretched out because the slices across the video are referencing further and further back in time, or as we get past the middle point, further and further into the future. So this side is pulling from almost 2 seconds and a little over 2 seconds into the future. This one is not very far back. If I go right in the middle, it might make sense as well, where it's a little further into the future. If I go really extreme here, this will make even more sense, right? Let me check this out. So now the back end of the triangle is pulling from 3 seconds into the past, and the front end is pulling from about 3 seconds into the future. And 3 seconds in the future, the triangle's gone pretty far down across the video. And in the past, it hasn't gone very far. So it now has to stretch between those two results. So it's showing that span of time. Now it's still moving. That's the interesting thing, right? Throughout this whole video, this isn't just a still image, it's moving. It's also going to move faster now. It's moving across that video faster than it originally did because it's now showing where it was, the very left side is showing like 10 seconds into the past. Actually, exactly 10 seconds into the past. The very left side is showing 10 seconds in the past, and the very right side is showing 10 seconds in the future. We have 20 seconds technically happening across our video. And this triangle only takes, I think, 10 seconds in its original speed to get across the screen. But now that we have so much extra time being shown on the screen, it goes a lot faster. You can sort of visualize how these lines relate to the movement of that triangle. You can see the left side is referencing here. We haven't even gotten to the tip of the triangle, or we've already gotten to the tip of the triangle here because we're now referencing this part, which is almost not delayed at all. And then eventually right here, we have it pulling from the future already. So it's like the triangle's almost already done about that many seconds across. Actually, we can double check how long the original video takes. Originally, it takes, well, we won't know. So it starts at like 15 seconds and it ends at 45 seconds. Or yeah, so it's 30 seconds. It's actually a 30-second animation. If we set this time displacement to 10 seconds, that gives us a 20-second condension. And now it only takes from 24 to 36. So anyway, it's going a lot faster. This is already, you can see it's stretching my brain. One other thing I wanted to show you is that if you keep going with this time displacement, something really weird will happen. I'm going to keep this at around 31 seconds. If I keep going, you'll see it will stretch out almost to infinity. And then actually, if you can balance it right on infinity. And what's happening now is that the time displacement is equal to the speed of the triangle itself. So there's a moment when the triangle actually looks exactly the same at every slice of the video, right? Because the triangle, you're basically showing the middle point of the triangle and every slice of this, time displaced video, because we're showing the delay or advancement that lines up perfectly with where that triangle is. God, this is hard to explain. You can see these lines are all intersecting the triangle at about the same point. And that's why we get this weird just block of line that sort of shrinks and grows. And if we keep going past the speed that the video actually is, I think it was like, remember, it was like a 30-second video and 15 times 2 is 30 seconds. So we had to pass 15. Now it's actually going in reverse. And that triangle is going to go from right to left. And you're going to think, why the heck would that happen? It took me forever to figure this out as well. But these lines should hopefully explain it. I'm going to struggle through this again. But the idea is that we want to see what's going on here. Where does this tip of the triangle get its information from? Well, since this is so steep, it's actually the first thing to see the tip of any triangle. Remember, these lines only show, I should have been clear about this earlier, only show where they actually line up. So you're like, well, why isn't it showing the triangle here? It's going through that triangle. It's only seeing something when the very tip of these lines lines up with something itself. So, the very tip here lines up with the tip of this triangle. So it's showing the tip of that triangle. We keep going further, and now this is showing the tip of the triangle. And as I go further, now this is showing the tip of the triangle. You can see that this slight offset between the ramp of the time displacement and the ramp of the actual delay of the triangle moving in its normal speed causes the tip to show up first on the right and then make its way to the left. And this is going to be true with all the other parts of the triangle. So the butt end of the triangle, like by the time that is appearing on the right side of the screen, it will then appear a little further to the left later on. So you can see wherever these lines, these vertical lines, line up with the triangle is where on this original video we will see that triangle. You know, guys, at this point, I'm just going to say play around with it until it makes a mental visual click to you the way it did for me when I was making this. But that explains why things go backwards sometimes. Yeah, and you can still play around with the time slice number and it gets a little finer or chunkier, but that's really not as well displayed as in the other video. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. This has been way too long. If you have questions and you're one of the first 100 to make it on my Discord, hit me up or just try hitting me up anyway. Thank you guys so much for watching, and yeah, good luck.